Welcome to the Spiritual Cartel's Principal Meeting. Tonight we are looking at the principle forgiveness. This week I am pleased to introduce Brenda, who has kindly agreed to come along and share for us. Brenda, over to you.
God, I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I will help of your power, your love, and your way of life. May I do your will always. My name is Brenda, a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. It's good to see all of you. I come bearing tidings of comfort and joy. Really grateful to have the opportunity to be here with you. My thanks to Andy for the invitation, for having to wait so long for me to be able to get here. I'm a school teacher by profession, and we just let out of school last week, so I got here as soon as I could. Thank you. And also, if y'all have any ideas like for improvements or have any step work that you need to do after listening to me, Andy said he'd be available to listen to all of those 5th steps. Yeah. So I'd like to start with a bit of a disclaimer of my own. By the way, my sobriety date is July 3rd of 1990. And in a month or so, I'll be sneaking up on 35 years. And I mention that just because that kind of time without drinking and drugging seemed an impossibility to the 24-year-old woman that walked through the doors. And the other reason I mention it is because there are men and women on this meeting for whom I have the greatest deal of respect, the greatest amount of admiration, and a deep level of friendship. And I'm particularly moved to see you here this evening. I have given myself permission to be imperfect and enough at the same time. I often need help to maintain a rational perspective. I reserve the right to cry, to make mistakes, and to not always have my own answers. And rather than being focused on the time I've been here, I'm more focused on what I'm doing with that time now. I have a friend who says, Brenda, remember, you don't have to be finished to be free. Now, I've been around drug addicts and alcoholics all of my life, so I know your attention span is for about 4 more minutes, okay? I'm aware of that. I got 4 minutes to hurry the hell up, because right after that, you're like, I wonder what I'm going to eat for dinner. Did that guy tell me, did he call me back? Where did I leave my book? I should really stop smoking. Where are the kids? Shh, don't tell the kids we're here. Did I put gas in the, and off you go. And then you come back at the end when I say, and I'd like to really thank y'all because this was just a fabulous, and then you're back. And so before we go all there, I want to tell you how courageous I think it is to, by the way, I used to be really shy and quiet of spirit. I was never that person. I got up at the nursery when I got here and said, hello, everybody, welcome. So I've been sober all this time. I've been clean all this time, and I have a level of enthusiasm that often concerns me. But you see, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm supposed to be dead. And I know the day I was going to die. I was going to die on July 4th of 1990. And the reason I know for sure that I was going to die on July 4th of 1990 was because I found you on July the 3rd. I wish I knew you all. I wish I knew you all personally. But I want you to know that I have asked God to give you that thing you came in search of today. That thing, whether you needed hope, there's going to be plenty of that. If you needed joy, if you needed recovery, if you needed patience, whatever it is that you most need, I've asked God to give that to you during our time together. So when somebody asks me to share on a topic, I prepare, and I prepare by consulting my own experience, right? And so the only person that I'm talking about here is just me. It's just my process. It's just how I have figured out to make an approach to God. And you're welcome to take what you'd like, and then just leave the rest here. There'll be somebody else here to take my place next time. So I like to write down the 3 people I refuse to forgive. Because, it's one thing to theoretically think about forgiveness, and it's a whole other thing to think about forgiveness in my own life. So I like to write down the names of the 3 people I need to forgive. Then what happens is this. So I write down the names of the 3 people. Then I think about what they did to me. Then I think about how they never did this to fix the thing they did. Then I think about how I'm going to get revenge. I admit that was not the assignment, Brenda. The assignment was to write down, because that's the trap, right? I think about their name. Then I think about their offense. Then I think about what they still owe me. Then I think about how I'm going to get even. And I never get past that. And that's how I wake up 15 years sober, completely irritable and disconnected. It's how I wake up 20 years sober, wondering if this is all there is, right? But it's because those ideas, I can't go from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, pretending like I don't have any work to do in the middle of between the meetings, right? And so I'm just going to write the 3 names so that I have somewhere in my own life to focus my attention. I am going to tell you that the biggest obstacles to me growing along spiritual lines, remember we said that's in the beginning of the meeting. So the biggest obstacle to me growing along spiritual lines is my own mind. It's my own thinking. And ironically, my own thinking is the only place I won't challenge myself. I often try and be better behaviorally. I try and be better emotionally, but I never think to question my mind. Now, I had some ideas rooted in my thinking that kept me from being able to figure out how to forgive at all. Some of these will sound familiar. I could not forgive them because they deserved to be punished. I'll forgive all the other ones. But there's a whole group of people that I'm not going to forgive because they deserve to be punished. It took me a long time to understand nobody's arguing that point, Brenda. The next obstacle is that I didn't think that they deserve to be free. I wouldn't ask God to help me with the people I was resentful toward and wasn't going to forgive, because God is all about loving and compassion and forgiveness, and I didn't think those people deserved it. One of the biggest obstacles when it comes to forgiveness for me is that I understand and I believe and I have bought that I am right. Again, a point nobody's arguing. The monsters that I grew up with, the monsters that I fed, the monsters that I became, all of those things made me feel that I was right to be angry. Nobody's arguing that. That I was right to hold a grudge. Nobody argued that. That I was right to not forgive them. And for a long time, I couldn't make an approach. And then to make matters worse, not only was I convinced that I was right, I had people who were willing to confirm that. And so I'd go to a meeting and I'd share, and then they did this, and then they stole this, and then they broke this, and then they left this. And people in my life were like, yeah, you have a right to be mad. And then I had a sponsor who says, okay, look, So here today are the 10 institutions, ideas, and people that you have listed that you will not forgive. I said, yes, that's them. And she said, okay, okay. But in your mind, I want you to take a pair of handcuffs and cuff yourself to, to each one of those 10 things. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, if you're withholding forgiveness, then you're withholding freedom. And if you're withholding freedom, then you should be chained. I immediately thought, I have got to get another sponsor. She clearly did not understand the assignment. And then I thought the reason she doesn't understand, the reason she doesn't understand the depth of the wound is because she's not Mexican. Yeah, that's only funny if I say it. It's racial if you say it. So let me just say it for all of us. I thought that there was a kind of Mexican rage. I have a friend who says resentments are like peeing your pants. We can all see it, but you're the only one that feels it. So here's my bright idea. I decided I was going to build, and this came to me in prayer, which made it seem like the right thing to do. I decided that I was going to construct a spiritual jail. Yep, a spiritual jail. It's going to have 4 cells on each side. I just let 2 random people go. I think they ran away. But anyway, I had 8. All right, so I built this jail. And God came running by and he's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, it's fabulous. It's all ready. I'm about to put them in their cells. You want to watch? And he's like, sure, I got. So he sits on a little stool and he's watching me. And I would walk the person, the guilty party, to the door of their cell and decree their injustice, their betrayal, their wound, and I'd lock them up. And then I did that to all 8 people. And then I walk over by God. I'm like, see, that's really good, right? And he's like, well, it's interesting, Brenda. If nothing else, you are interesting. Well, I got to go. And I'm like, well, where are you going? He's like, well, I can't stay here. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And I realized that none of the doors had locks. And I'm like, where are the locks? And he's like, to what? To the cell. They're going to get out. He said, yeah, that's not how this works. If you make a spiritual jail and then you put everybody in their cells and there's no locks, and if you don't want them to get away, you got to stay here and watch them. I said, I don't care. Go on then. I'll be right here. And I want you to know that I had those people locked up at 5 years sober. I had those people locked up at 10 years sober. I had those people locked up at 15 years sober. What I didn't see was that every day of all those years, as I stood and held guard there, I didn't realize that the light in my own life had dimmed and I could no longer see myself. I could no longer see my family and my friends, and I could no longer make my way to God. And I knew what I had to do. So I started with the one that was the easiest, and I walked to the door of that cell and I opened it and I said, you can go. And it crushed me. It crushed me because even though I didn't like them and I thought they deserved everything they got, when I opened the jail cell and let them out and I looked them in the eye, I saw how much I saw how much being impressed, being arrested, being locked up, I saw how much it had taken from them. And there, in front of me, stood a shadow of the person they used to be. I got to the last cell, and this one I was not going to let out. It was my sister, who I affectionately call Satan. That's not her birth name. Like, I had to tell y'all that. And I said to God, I said, I don't know what to do because I can't let her go. And God's like, why can't you let her go? I said, I can't let her go because she's going to think she won. And then God said, well, your other option is to stay here and die. So I don't know. And faced with only those two choices, I walked to the jail cell and I opened it. And I did the thing I thought I was never going to do. I looked at my sister and I said, you can go. And she looked at me and she smirked at me and she said, I told you I'd win. That evening, I walked out of that cell myself. Holding people and withholding forgiveness for me is like putting, you know how they have those dogs and they have those the chokers, right? That if the dog runs too far one way, you can pull on it and apparently it chokes the dog, which makes me want to kick somebody's ass. That's not a cuss word. It's, anywho. So here's what had to happen. I had to change the objective. The objective was to punish them. And I got to a point after I let them all out of jail that I had to change the objective. And the objective went from punishing them to setting myself free. That's what the new mandate was after I finally let them go. And here are the things I figured out when I finally pointed myself towards something different. I found out that those people are going to suffer the consequences, just not from me. My mom, I have 6 sisters and 2 brothers, and my mom brought us up, my father. And after we turned 18 years old, she never, ever, ever commented, gave advice, led us in any way. We'd go to her with whatever, and we'd say, Mom, just tell me, what do I do right now? And my mother would say to me, Brenda, I had 18 years. I had 18 years to teach you right from wrong, good from bad, forward to backward. I had 18 years. Now life has to teach you the rest. And so here I was, finally willing to point myself to setting myself free, realizing that there would be consequences, but I was not the one that's going to have to administer those. I figured out that I deserved my own life. Here I was sober in AA. Here I was sponsoring women, holding service commitments, working the steps, reading out of the book, study. All of that is geared to do one thing for me, and it is to put me in the presence of God. And I started to understand that I deserve my own life. Forgiveness turned out to be the thing that let them live, but not next to me. See, I had this idea that if I forgave him, I was going to have to be in relationship with them. That's not been my experience, nor the requirement based on my experience. So that let them live, but not near me. And here's the thing that I wish somebody had told me, and they may have told me, but I didn't get it. For me, in my experience, forgiveness is not an event. It's a process. That means that on any given day, I'm willing to give up my own ideas about what they deserve. I'm willing to give up my own ideas about who's right. There's a group out in California, and their little clubhouse, there's a brick on the wall that says, it's not about who's right, it's about who's left. Look, that sister, when I go back to my hometown, they call it the little Brenda tour. I go around and see all my brothers and sisters, my nephews and nieces. So I just go and God's like, hey, pop by your sister's house. I'm like, nope, nah, you know what? I'm good. He's like, just go. And I'm like, I'm not going. And the car drove to my sister's house, and I knocked on the door, and she opened it, and she let me in. So I walked into the front door of her apartment, and she says, sit down. I said, I won't be staying. And God said, sit down. So I sat down, and she was loaded, and we were just having general small talk. And then she got up to go get something, and she tripped, and she was going to hit the floor. And I jumped out of my seat, and I grabbed her before she hit the floor so she wouldn't hurt herself. And then I started to cry, because until I caught her, I didn't know that God had fixed it. Until I instinctively moved to catch her, I didn't know that hate had been replaced by compassion. Look, I'm still the kind of person that if people want me to behave differently or look at something differently, my favorite question is, what's in it for me? I'm trying not to have a resentment about all the people on here talking about chocolate before the meeting started. Why? Because there's carrots in my refrigerator. Is there any chocolate? No. And then the guy's like, hey, the best ice cream is somewhere I can't get on a plane and go get it. Thank you, sir. And all y'all talking about crunch and everything. I'm definitely going to have some step work to do after this share. So I'm here to tell you that I can't tell you what day, but I can tell you what's happened to my life, what's happened to me as a direct result of being to even half-heartedly practice these principles. Let me tell you what happened to me physically after I forgave them, right? Because I need the proof. I need to know what happens. If I do that, if I get willing to let them go, if I get willing to deliver their consequences to be administered by somebody else, if I decide that I deserve my own life, if all that happens, what do I get? And for me physically, what I got was, I'm a type 2 diabetic, and which explains the carrots. Anyway, and your A1C level is supposed to be between 6.0, 6.5, somewhere in that area. Don't be bored. I'm getting to with a part that applies to you in just a minute. Because that's the only part of the story I want to hear, is the part that sounds like it's going to help me. So my A1C has always been, listen, when it was at its worst, it was 13 something, 13.4, 13.7. And then I went about working with the doctor and whoever else trying to fix that. The lowest I could ever get it was 9.7 or something. And they're still like, yeah, this is not good. So I went ahead on and did the work and started therapy and started being moral service, and I did all this stuff. I just went last week to get blood work done, and the lady says your A1C level is 6.6. She was like, what did you do? I'm like, I forgave people. I let them out of jail. And she's like, you got to be careful how you deliver the stories out in public. People's all I'm saying. Because she's like, oh, you work at the jail? She sounded a little impressed by that. I'm like, yeah, I work at the jail. It's closed now. She said, oh, the jail closed? And I'm like, I gotta go, ma'am. So I have less pain in my body. What? I went to a doctor. The doctor's like, ma'am, look at this picture right here. You know what this picture says? And I said, no. He said, this picture says that you need a complete knee replacement. He's like, so let me know when you get ready to do something about that. I'm like, no problem. So the only time my knee hurts today is when somebody asks me, does your knee hurt? What? Y'all better shut up. Because if I had been in your seat and somebody was telling this story, I'm like, that is so not the truth. Liar. But in a spiritual way. And, and I accidentally, not even meaning to, not even know why, I accidentally dropped 30 pounds. I used to tell people I didn't lose weight because nobody likes a loser. um, because what happened was that I started to wait to eat food after I had cried my tears. I started to wait to eat food after I had spoken to my sponsor, and I started to ask my body what it wanted rather than my mind what it wanted to do to escape. I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at y'all and I actually feel a little hate. You may not have to do this, it's good. Hold on to your 30. I'm with you. I accidentally gave him up. So go on, man. I tell people all the time, those of you that can drink should. What's happened to me mentally as a result of forgiveness? I'm not gonna lie to y'all. My concentration skills before I lost every concentration game I have ever played, and then that whole multi-step problem solving thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna crush step one and then the last step in the process. I don't remember how to do. So I'm able to concentrate. I'm able to understand. I'm able to study in ways that I've never been able to. And here's the real miracle about my mind, about what's happened to me mentally. I go to bed at night. Listen, every night before I go to bed, I say to God, hey, I just want you to know, if this was the last one, it was perfect. You crushed it. I say that every night, and then I wake up in the morning and I'm still here, and I'm like, one more. Let's go do one more. But what's happened with my mind is that I lay down in bed and I put my head on the pillow like this, and you know what? It is perfectly quiet in my head. And then when my mind does finally move, it moves far enough to say, I love you, God. So, emotionally, the work, the forgiveness has increased the dimensions of my emotional life. When you would share something and I didn't understand it emotionally, I didn't understand it, I just decided there was something wrong with you. Because that's the low-hanging fruit. When I go to a meeting, somebody shares something I don't understand, I just decide that there's something wrong with them. There's no challenge in that, Brenda. How do I know the dimensions of my emotional life have changed? Because of its capacity. And spiritually, what's happened is that I have finally, by the grace of God, acquired a level of compassion for myself that I didn't even think was possible. There's a movie called Amistad, and it's the story of slaves that were brought over from Africa, and then at some point they wound up in front of a court to fight for their freedom. And one of the slaves is in the witness box and he's still shackled. And at one particularly poignant point of the story, he stands up and he holds up his hands with his shackles on and says, "Give me free. Give me free." And I am here to tell you that I don't know what I thought, if anything, I was going to get from forgiving, but I can tell you that what has happened is that I've become a free woman, a sober, awake, accountable, funny, brilliant child of God. And it took the time it took to get here. I'm the first of the 9 of us that went to college, and I got my degree, and I became a teacher back when Jesus was little. So I went on a job interview the morning of graduation, and the principal's like, "Man, you are not leaving here without a job. What job do you want? Well, you can have whatever job you want." And I said, "Who are the kids nobody wants?" And he said, "Oh, that'd be the 6th graders." I said, "I'll take them." I just finished my 18th year teaching 6th graders. People are like, it's so great to be off. You're a teacher and you're off during the summer. Darling, all that means is that I'm able to double up on therapy and change the dosage of the medication. That's really all summer is about for teachers. So I get to every day. See, I started drinking and using when I was 12. That's how old the kids are. And I didn't know that God was already preparing me, that as I went back to get some of them, I went back to get some of me. And I want you to know, I wish I could tell you that I've been the A poster child and I got it all right and I haven't veered off into the weeds. I've been in the weeds so many times. In my 34.972, I teach math. Don't anybody argue about 34.972. Made that up, but I still don't need to hear no arguments about it. Anywho's, I had been teaching for 10 years, and then I left because I'd already paid up my karmic debt for Catholic school. All right, I was all paid in full. So I went to go work in corporate America, and then kids started picking up guns to talk at school. And I thought to myself, well, they're not going to the mall to kill kids. They're going back to school. I have a feeling they're going back to school with the guns because that's where the pain is. And so they think they can go back there and kill it. Those of us that can teach should probably go back and get some of those kids. So I quit my job where I was making really good money. I only meant to come back for 2 or 3 years. This will be year 9 that I'm back. And I want you to know that I have loved them and held them and insisted and educated and waited for all these children all this time. I have gone and done my work, so when they bring their crap, it doesn't scare me. It's not mine. I had a little girl who left one day and she had to go get wisdom teeth pulled. In the afternoon, she came back and she had her little cheeks all stuffed with cotton, like mine look right now, with no cotton in them. I digress. So she comes back to school and I said to the mama, I said, "What is she doing here?" She said that she didn't want to miss anything. I used to have a chicken, one of those rubber chickens going from the fan in the room, and the kids are like, "Miss, what is that?" I'm like, "That's one of the kids from last year." Every year on the first day of school, I go up to the board and I write, "We have a class clown and I work alone." We have so much fun. I had a little boy and he fainted, and they're like, Miss Hustle, Thomas fainted. The kids were always acting up. I'm like, "Kick him a little." And then they kicked him, slowly, lovingly kicked him, and he was out. So I was like, "Hey, okay, so let's get Thomas to wherever he needs to go." And he came back that afternoon with his mom, and he walks in and he said, "Miss Hassel, my mom wants to talk to you outside." I'm not going to lie, y'all. The first thing that crossed my mind is, does he remember being kicked? So I go outside. I say, "Hey, what happened?" She goes, "I don't know. He had some sort of seizure, and they're going to set him up for more testing." And I said, what's he doing here? She said, Miss Hasso, he said that if anything happened to him, that you would know what to do. I did also. Because, when you're new to teaching, they have bells, and two bells means tornado, three bells means, fire. I don't know. They just have these bells. And I wasn't really sure because I wasn't really paying attention. Remember that whole multi-step thing I mentioned earlier? So the sirens went off, and I'm like, come on, kids. I lined them all up, walked them all out to the pasture, and I'm like, good job, everybody. That's a great looking line. And then I realized we were the only line outside. So we quietly, sulkily we went back to the classroom, and the principal comes over. Thank you, everyone, for tornado drill, and thank you, Miss Hassel, for taking the kids outside. You gotta not. You got all I'm trying to say is you gotta like not care what it looks like. You gotta not care. You gotta be willing to get in there and get messy and be awake and because one day it's gonna be the last one. This isn't dress rehearsal for something else. This is it. This is it. And I told God, if you will help me get sober when I was 24, like I see y'all doing math. Okay, so I was 24 when I got sober, and I told God, if you get me sober, I promise I will do everything not to miss another moment of my life. I am 59. If I knew I was gonna look this good, people. So my kids, they go from the elementary school where I have them to the junior high, and they always have programs and crap, and they're like, hey, we'd like to invite you. I'm like, I didn't like y'all when I had to like y'all. What makes y'all think? So I go to all their crap. And every year at the end of school, I write my kids a note. I give them an envelope with a marble. And I want to share just the last part of that letter with you because it was my gift to them, but at the end of it all, it's my gift to you as well. I'm not afraid to let you see me because I understand that, as one of my teachers says, vulnerability won't keep me safe, but it will keep me open. And I'm willing to let you see me. In hopes that when it comes your turn, that you'll be able to take one step further and tell one more truth and move into one more light and read one more book and share one more story and cry one more tear. So I wrote the kids this note. It says, as you go through your summer and out of junior high and on to high school and wherever the rest of your choices take you, I wanted to tell you that part of growing up will include these long, hard, challenging days. It's all part of the experience. There will be plenty of places that will tempt you to quit, or worse, ask you to give up on you. I included a marble in your envelope to help you get through those days. And when those days come, I want you to hold the marble and remember these things, that everything you need is, psst, pay attention, everything you need is already inside you. That you have been seen and loved and cherished. Every day, even the hard ones, end at midnight. They're 12, and I told them, the world needs you. Trust your heart. It knows the way. Help every time. Don't settle. If you take care of the inches, the miles will take care of themselves. Life is beautiful and breathtaking and short. And I ended with a prayer for them, and I'll end with a prayer for you. May the road rise to meet you, and may the wind be ever at your back. That's it. Thank you very much.